Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Clues by Sam. I have an important point to talk about today with this one. I have unfortunately already recorded this once, but somehow the footage got corrupted and I don't know how to get it back. I tried and there's just no it's impossible to it cuts from a certain point and it's unusable. So I figured this one was really good because I've seen people online and you guys commenting about how it's a very hard one, even though it's not labeled as brutal. So I had a lot of fun doing it and I hope I can get similar result, but I'll show you my actual result later when we finish this one. Let's jump into this with a fresh mind and just know that I sort of know where I'm going and I figured it all out before. Now, let's start with Tina telling us that two of Clyde's neighbors in row one are innocent. So, first of all, Clyde is in row one himself and he has two neighbors there, so we know that both of those are gonna be innocent and we don't need Tina's clue anymore because it has given all of the information we need. So we dismiss it by clicking on it. Now, both Barb and Dana give us new clues. Barb says exactly one instant to right of Eli is neighboring Olive. So there's three people to the right of Eli, two of which neighbor Olive, and we mark them as opposites with the yellow tag because we know that only one of those who neighbor Olive is gonna be an innocent. Now, we don't know about Henry yet, but Dana says that an odd number of innocents in row 2 neighbor Clyde. So, three people, the same three who are to the right of Eli, neighbor Clyde, and one of them is already an innocent, the other one is already a criminal, even though we don't know exactly who. So that makes Henry not able to be an innocent, otherwise Clyde would have an even number of people in row 2 who are innocents neighboring him. So Henry has to be a criminal. And we don't need Dana's clue anymore. Do we need Barb's? I don't think so because we have tagged these people here. Henry says that row 5 is the only row with two innocents. And from that, we get that row 2 has one innocent already and one other person. So Eli here couldn't be a second innocent in row 2. Otherwise, we would have two rows with two innocents. So Eli is a criminal. And now Eli says that only one of the 5 criminals neighboring Maria is Uma's neighbor. So Phil and Raul here are shared by Maria and Uma, and they are going to be opposites, just like Ivan and Clay. The thing is, we know that Maria has 8 neighbors total, 5 of which are criminals, so 3 of the criminals we already know about, and one of those is gonna be in row 4, which already has Tina as an innocent. So could row 4 have Scott be a criminal? No, because then row 4 would also be a row with 2 innocents, and we know that row 5 is the only one. So Scott has to be an innocent so that there's 3 innocents in row 4. Now, the thing now is Maria is one of Ivan's 5 criminal neighbors. So we put Ivan and Maria in the mix here, and they share with Henry. Logan and Nick are shared by Maria and Henry. Am I looking at Henry? Row 5 is the only row with 2 innocents. One of the 5 criminals neighbor Maria is Wilson. So we know that Maria has 2 more criminal neighbors. That's fine. Ivan has 5 criminal neighbors. Maria is a criminal. Oh yeah, Henry gets in the mix right now. There's an odd number of innocents neighboring Henry. So, with that, let's look at Henry and Maria and the neighbors they share. They share Eli, so that's 1 criminal. But Maria needs 2 more criminals who are going to be shared with Henry, right? Because either Phil or Raul, let's say that this is the configuration here. Maria has 3 criminals, she needs 2 more to make 5. Let's say that those 2 are Logan and Nick, shared with Henry. that would make it so that Henry ends up with 4 criminal neighbors. So, with the current neighbors that we know from Henry, he has an even number of criminal neighbors, 4. So to make an odd number, which is what Maria says that he has, then his neighbors in row 1 who are not revealed yet would have to have one more criminal among them. So either Alice or Clyde would have to be a criminal here to give Henry an odd number. That makes them opposites, okay? So we tag them as opposites, but we still don't know about Logan, Nick, and Ivan. We do know, though, that Ivan has 5 criminal neighbors. So, can we look at Nick, who is one of the people that is shared by Ivan and Maria and is also shared with Henry? And can we make Nick an innocent? If we make Nick an innocent, what happens to Ivan? Ivan also has 5 criminal neighbors, so he would need 3 more. And those 3 can only be Clyde, Clay, and Olive, because everybody here has to be a criminal to give Ivan 5 criminals. And Ivan would be an innocent because of Clay, since we know they are opposites. Now, can Maria have 5? No, she can't, because there's not enough people left to make 5 criminals neighboring her, because both Ivan and Nick are innocents in this scenario. So Nick has to be a criminal. There's no way he could be an innocent. And we have 2 more criminals here that we need to find for Ivan. Now Nick says that Wanda is one of 8 innocents on the edges. So Wanda is an innocent here. And she doesn't give us a new clue. Why? Because we have to think about something here. We have to look at Maria. Maria needs 1 more criminal neighbor. She has Eli, Henry, and Nick, and the 4th one who's either Phil or Raul. So that makes Logan and Ivan opposites, right? If they are opposites, and if we know that row 5 has 2 innocents total, what does that give us? How many innocents do we have on the edges, which we just checked from Nick? We have 2 here in row 5, and we have 3 here in row 1 that we know are gonna be there. There's Barb and Dana, plus either Alice or Clyde. That makes 3 total in row 1, 2 total in row 5, that's 5, and we have Tina here. That makes 6 innocents on the edges that we have so far, so we need 2 more. What happens if we make Ivan an innocent? Both Clay and Logan are going to be criminals because both Clay and Logan are opposites with Ivan. And our 2 innocents that we need to be on the edges to make a total of 8 would have to be Olive and Phil, right? If we make Ivan... No. We have to clear everything here. If we make Ivan a criminal, though, both Logan and Clay, who are opposite with Ivan, will be our last 2 innocents on the edges. So Olive and Phil would be forced to be criminal, right? Now, what does that prove? It proves that Clay and Olive are opposites and Logan and Phil are opposites. So, if Clay and Olive are opposites and Ivan needs 2 more criminals to make a total of 5, and these guys here are opposites, where's his second needed criminal neighbor? It has to be Clyde, right? So Clyde is a criminal, almost made him an innocent on accident there. But we get a new clue from Clyde, who says there's an equal number of innocents in columns A and D. This is where it gets tricky, because we just figured out that Clay and Olive and Logan and Phil are opposite pairs, right? So let's just try to make Ivan a criminal again like we did before, and that would make Phil and Olive also criminals, which would make Raul an innocent because he's opposites with Phil, right? If we know there has to be an equal number of innocents in columns A and D, how many innocents do we have here in column D? We have 3, which means we need a third one in column A, right? That would have to be Uma. Uma would be then the last innocent in row 5, because we know there's only 2 innocents in row 5. So both Zina and Zara here in row 5 are criminals. And that makes column D have 2 criminals, while column A has 2 criminals. That works. But does column B have more criminals than column D in this scenario? It doesn't, because there's 2 criminals as well in column B, and there's 2 criminals in column D, so the same is not one more than the other, which makes Raul not able to be a innocent, because he's the last person left in this column, and that's what triggers the whole chain, where if Raul is an innocent, it forces Phil to be a criminal, which forces Logan, which forces Ivan, then Clayton, Olive, and it doesn't work for anybody. So Raul has to be a criminal. And Raul being a criminal makes Phil an innocent, and our chain just ends up solving itself. Because now our solution goes from we need a second criminal to make 2 criminals in column D, and there's one more person left in column D, so Zara is going to be the second criminal, and that makes it so that there is ever only 2 criminals in column A, which we already have, so the last person in column A, Uma, is going to be an innocent, and that makes Zina our criminal. Ooh. Okay, so I did half the time I have done on my first solve, which is right here. Let me grab it up. I did this one in a incognito tab. So this was my previous solve. I had 22 minutes in there. I didn't get the faster stats there. But I hope this doesn't corrupt. And I hope you guys got it there on my explanation. I feel like it's not as easy to follow when I already know what I'm doing, because if you guys are figuring it out with me, maybe it's easier to follow because it's slower and I make more of an effort to explain where that solve is coming from. Whereas if I already know what's next, like for example there with Maria, I knew Maria had to give us our next clue, but I just wasn't paying attention to, because I already had the solution in my head, right? So I was more preoccupied with getting to the next step rather than, oh, how do I get to the next step, and making and explaining how we get to the next step. So that's why I feel it's important to solve it live with you guys. And that's why I'm gonna keep doing it. And I hope you guys can forgive me for this one. I'll leave you here for today and quickly edit this one so it doesn't go live as late. See you tomorrow for more Clues by Sam. Bye bye.